Good morning. I'm Laura Jane, or LJ, and I'm so honored to be here in this really special and powerful group that our amazing friend and mentor for so many of us, Xiomara Escobar, has created for us. So here we are. I got invited to be day one speaker, which I feel so excited about and so honored to be asked to be here with you. And what Xiomara asked me to share in the name of, I love how she's calling this master your mindset, right? Because I think that important word your is what we want to tune into here, that we don't have control over a lot of things in life, right? And that's something that we realize as we keep moving through and along our path, right, and journey. But one thing we can have some power and control over is our mindset. And it really is our mindset. And it's also something that actually nobody else can do for us, right? So it does invite us to be in this level of ownership, right? Owning it and owning what we can have a power in. And this could be the most powerful thing we could have a power in our life, right? And in the ways that we can help others for sure, which I know is something that really binds all of us here, that we're so interested in how we're showing up for others, right? How we're showing up for our loved ones, how we're showing up in our work lives and our creating, and how we're responding to the world right now, right? Because it has been such an intense year, and a lot of us really feeling it, right? And on edge and just even more perhaps vulnerable in things like our mental health. So many reasons to bring this in to our awareness that our mindset is our mindset, and it is one of the things we can have a power over. So when I get to come in here as a yoga person, that's cute that Xiomara called me yoga guru, even though I tease that I don't actually like that word guru, but I thank you, Xiomara, for the honor. That as a yoga person, yoga therapist, someone who gets to speak, teach, and write about yoga and help people bring it into their lives, which is what I love to do, how does yoga go along with mindset? Well, you may or may not know that yoga, first of all, just means union, to join or to connect. That's the biggest thing I always teach every time I talk about yoga. So it does not at all have to do with exercises unless we want to. Exercises are one of the ways that we can practice and experience yoga. But yoga meaning union, to join, to connect. So meaning anything that helps us reconnect with ourselves, reconnect mind, body, reconnect with the moment, reconnect spiritually, of course. So anything that can be an experience of yoga, a practice of yoga. And part of what I'm going to offer to you with what we're giving away this week is my latest yoga book that I put together that actually Xiomara helped me throw the release party a few years ago. But it's really my effort at sharing what I feel like yoga is, how you can use it, and way beyond just poses, even though there are some really helpful gentle poses that help all bodies. So I'm going to hook you up with a free copy of my book as part of this. But also wanting to share that yoga meaning union, how does it have to do with mindset? Well, one of the things I learned, because I also came to yoga from psychology. I had a master's degree in psychology before I went into yoga. And it is because I found out even halfway along my journey, I've been in yoga for 20 years, so probably about 10 years ago, I even started to realize that yoga is actually a system of psychology more than anything. Get that. So it's a lot about our mindset. And some of the ways we do that through practices of yoga, anything that can help us find that union, is through things like our attention and our awareness and our focus. That's some of the deepest aspects of what we're working with in our practices of yoga and what we're practicing with, what we're developing. And really what I feel like I want to share today in this short time that I get to be part of this series, and how can we really boost our mindset, right? Master our mindset using things like our awareness, our attention, our focus. So yeah, we're talking about things that could feel like meditation too, but it's really our inner relationship with ourselves, right? One of the biggest things that helps us that we get from yoga is that we're always invited to bring in the spirit of non-judgment, which I've also come to see even better than that. We could call that this hot word that a lot of us have been talking about for years, self-love. So one of the things we're always invited to bring in as part of our yoga practices, which really means into our moments with ourselves, and yes, especially when we're getting a chance to see what is on our mind. How are we feeling? How are we focusing? So a big part of what our practices can do for us, anything that can be a form of yoga for you, which could mean taking a walk, sitting on a chair, it could mean listening to music. There's lots of forms, and that's what's in my book. But when we, in our moments, wherever we're at, we get even more skilled at observing what's true, how we're handling ourselves, how we're focusing, how we're feeling, how that's playing into our lives, right? But as we do that, in that awareness, one of the most helpful parts is practicing the non-judgment and more like self-love. And I've really been working on that with myself, because if you're like me, I tend to do the very opposite, right? I think a lot of us have been wired to think our job is to judge the heck out of ourselves, right? And to be so scrutinous and, yes, maybe discerning, but usually pretty darn hard on ourselves, right? And even saying things to ourselves, we don't even realize it, that we would never say to someone that we actually love, right? So there's a real power, I'm realizing, to part of this mindset is that we can choose our attitude, right? Which is very huge from someone like Viktor Frankl, who was in the concentration camps years ago, a psychologist who came out of that in his experience that he witnessed in any tragedy time, especially things like what we're going through this year. The one thing we have power over still is our attitude, right? And that feels so like potent from someone coming out of the concentration camps, right, at those times. But if we have power over our mindset and our attitude, I'm seeing one of the specific ways we can do this is really watching how we're being with ourselves, watching how we're talking to ourselves, getting into that non-judgment, more like self-love throughout the day, really throughout our moments, whether or not we feel like we're practicing yoga. But certainly the idea is when we feel like we're practicing yoga, whether we're doing some poses or other things, doing some breath work, anything that just gets us in a chance and a state to be with ourselves, to listen to ourselves, to notice what is true, right? But the bringing in the non-judgment, the compassion, the kindness is the hugest shift I think a lot of us could make that will help us master our mindset more, right? And really help us be in the momentum that we want to be. Because when we start to see, like I've seen with myself, when we're doing the opposite, right? Tearing ourselves down, breaking ourselves down, judging ourselves, micromanaging ourselves, right? And this is all from my experience with myself and others, that we're actually not using that mindset its most efficient way, right? Because that mind is so powerful in what's creating in our lives, right? The mind like a garden, whatever we're cultivating there, absolutely expressing into our lives. And speaking of how we're going to be with others, how we're going to show up in the world, so much to do with how we're being with ourselves, right? So that attitude and attitude with ourselves as this key that we could really start to focus on and play with. And it's actually a really fun invitation. It's like, can you just be nicer to yourselves, to ourselves? Can we just talk to ourselves like someone we love and even say things to ourselves like, I love you, LJ. You're doing great. You got this, girl. Come on, sweet baby. I've been doing that more with myself. And it might feel a little crazy, but I'm like also seeing, wow, I'm going to show up even more strong, confident, able to help others, able to be that for others, right? How can we be kindness and compassion for others if we're not being that for ourselves, right? So I would vote that that could be one of the things we learn from yoga is bringing in, playing with, practicing, getting better at that kindness and compassion with ourselves that can go along with that mindfulness too of, yes, being more aware of how we're feeling, how we're doing, how we're thinking, how we're focusing, how we're imagining, how we're remembering, right? All those things, that's important. But within that awareness and then observing, bringing in that big time self-love, kindness, compassion, which really can be about how we're talking to ourselves, right? saying it out loud or saying it in our heads. Right? I can feel that relief in my body. So that's my proposition, that we see how a big part of mastering our mindset is in bringing that kindness and compassion in with ourselves, matching that with the mindfulness we can be practicing, right? And that could really boost us, shift us, lift us, right? Strengthen us, bring us into a whole different energy, because of course it's all energy. So yeah, maybe you want to play with that with me. Shall we try more kindness, more compassion with ourselves this week? And also just notice when we're doing the opposite, and aim not to judge when we're judging ourselves, right? I always have to watch that one with myself. It's a slippery slope. But then I notice it's so nice to have community and family like we have here, right? And that supports us and reminds us, that friends who will remind us if they hear us being hard on ourselves. We'll be like, remember, you're doing great. Remember how we're focusing on more kindness and compassion with ourselves, that self-love as our gift to ourselves and the world, right? And especially now, right? Because a lot of people are really out of sorts this year. All of us have been affected. A lot of people still scared, divided, angry, right? There's so much going on. So that's why I appreciate Xiomara inviting us to see 2020 is not over, and we can choose right now to decide how we want to be and live even just the rest of this year, especially because it's such an intense year, right? Like the world needs us now. Whew. So this feels like a really great way that we can help ourselves show up in the energy that the world needs, right? Because I think we all see that more kindness and compassion undeniably can help. So thank you, Xiomara, who's always such 100% model of that in her daily life. I don't know how much you know how she's always helping someone, and is like a real force in any community she's part of. So thank you, Xiomara, and thank you all for being here. So happy and honored to have your awareness and attention here. And yes, maybe I can put my PDF of my book in the comments, and make sure you can get a copy of that. So it's really easy for you to start using more things that you can feel like are yoga if you're interested, and bring that in to help you with your mindset, right? All right, I'll sign off. Sending love to you all. Namaste.